So let's begin the new section which talks about the new ruler of France, King Louis XVI. When King Louis XVI became the ruler of France, that time he was just 20 years old. Just how much? 20 years old. So you can imagine how young he was. He was married to the Austrian woman whose name was what? Marie Antoinette. Now that time when he became the ruler, he found that France had no monetary resources. There was financial shortage in the country. The reasons are listed here. Let's do them one by one. What happened? France in the previous year was constantly engaged in wars with other countries, other European countries and overseas countries also. So what happened? Long years of wars, long involvement of France in wars led to what? Shortage of resource in the country. Also, there was one big palace in France that was called what? The Versailles. The palace, as the palace was huge, the cost of maintaining that palace was also very huge. So next reason you can see here was what? Cost of maintaining this palace of Versailles in the country. Also, moreover, what happened? France and America had a common enemy, that was what? Britain. Now what happened that time? Britain had 13 colonies in America. So France helped America to free itself from Britain. So France helped America to free how many? 13 of its colonies. So what happened? Lot of resource, lot of money, lot of revenue collected from the people, from the country was wasted in all these reasons which are listed here. Moreover, there were daily expenses which were to be met. Running of government offices and universities also added burden on the king for bringing what? Monetary resources in the country. Now what happened? The country was facing what? Acute shortage of financial resources. So the King Louis found out a solution. What was the solution? That was to impose taxes on the third estate. Now also what happened? Moreover, there is one more point we missed in between. Now what happened when the countries which were giving credit, also after these reasons there is one more thing mentioned here in the chapter, that lenders, the countries who were helping France in providing money, in providing monetary help, now were charging what? How much of interest? 10% of interest on the loan given. So lenders were giving how much of credit? Now whatever credit, whatever qarza they were giving to France, they were imposing 10% of interest on it. So France was in dire need, a very urgent need of bringing money in the country. So what happened? King Louis XVI decided to divide the society into 3 estates. The 3 estates are already there in the book. Let me do one by one here in this video also. The first estate included people who were named as what? Clergy. Now you can write down, note it down, who were clergy: religious people, priests and the fathers of the church. Second estate belonged to whom? Nobility. Now these were people who were considered very noble. They enjoyed certain titles given by the ruler. Also there were some ministers included in the second estate, that were nobilities. The third estate included some rich people, wealthy people, big businessmen, officials, and also included further 3 classifications, 2 more classifications like peasants, small peasants, artisans, landlords, landless laborers and servants. So the king decided to do what? To impose the taxes on the third estate. As we can see, he protected what? The first and the second estate. And the third estate had what? 3 divisions. The topmost division was occupied by some wealthy people. They were traders, they were factory owners, they were big businessmen, officials and lawyers, and moreover under them worked middle class and the low class people. So what happened? The entire all kind of taxes were imposed on the third estate, this group of people. Okay. Moreover, in the third paragraph, you can see that it is written there that 90% of the population of France was that time included what? Peasants in the country. Okay, so 90% of population. Can you imagine a whole of France and 90% of the population was what? Peasants. And most of the land, that is 60% of the land, was owned by whom? The church, the nobles, who enjoyed feudal privileges. Now feudal system is a new term which is given in this chapter. Now what is this feudal system? Kindly have a look here. it's a social system, it's a system working in the society, where what happens, the small peasants, they have to give some kind of services to the nobles, to the clergy, and what they get in return, they get protection and the land from the nobles and the clergy. So this was a system that was prevalent in Europe before 18th century. This was this was called what, feudal system. So feudal system was a social system where people of lower estates had to provide what, services to first estate and the second estate. Okay, and in return the people of the first estate and second estate used to give them what, land. Okay, so what were the privileges enjoyed by the nobles and clergy? See, peasants were obliged, they were forced to give services to what, to the lords, but the owners of the church and the ministers, they had to work in their houses, fields, they had to serve them like servants, and also they had to take active participation during the construction of roads. Sometimes wars also, they were sent to fight the wars also. So these privileges were enjoyed by whom? People of first estate and the second estate. And these privileges are coming under which heading? That is known as what? Feudal privileges. So this was a system that was prevalent in France before 1789, and this period is also termed as what? Old regime. So if it is asked in the paper, what was old regime, you can simply answer what years the society of an institution of France before which year? 1789. So this was all included in old regime. So we saw that in old regime, feudal system was very much prevalent in the country, where the people of third estate, also people belonging to low status वाले लोगों को, they had to give some kind of services to the people of first estate and the second estate. Now let's look at the kind of taxes imposed on the people. There were some direct taxes and indirect taxes. Direct taxes in the form of teeths. Teeths were given to the church. Okay, church, they charged some taxes on the peasants. Okay, because they used to give them land. Okay, so we already have read it in the feudal system. Land was given to by the nobles and by the priests and the religious people to the peasants. Okay, so what was the tax charge that time? That was teeths. Okay, tail was another kind of direct tax that was imposed by the states on the people. Okay, like we have the state government, the central government, same kind. That time also the state used to charge a direct tax on the people. That was called what? Tail. Also, moreover, people had to give an indirect tax. So indirect taxes on certain commodities like salt and tobacco was also charged. So there were some group of indirect and direct taxes that had to be that who was tolerating, the peasants had to give it to the church, either sometimes church or state, or in the form of indirect taxes. ओके, इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस के एग्जांपल, रैपर कोई देखो, प्रोडक्ट का कोई भी रैपर देखो, ब्रैकेट में लिखा होता है कॉस्ट के बाद इंक्लूसिव ऑफ ऑल टैक्सेस. Example of what? Indirect taxes. So all kinds of taxes was imposed on the people of third estate. So it was easier for the wealthy people to pay, but all the burden was a real burden felt on how many people? Felt on these people who were called what? Peasants and the landless laborers, small peasants, servants who were working on the lands of what? Nobles and clergy.